Way back in the deep woods, there lived a scrawny old woman who had a reputation for being the best conjuring woman in the Ozarks, with her bed-wrinkled black and gray hair, funny eyes, one yellow and one green, and her
she was a nurse from Scotland. She had the same initials as James M. Barrie, the Scottish author of Peter Pan. Yeah, the Peter Pan. What's strange though is that there appears to be no connection between the two of them. A copy of Peter Pan and membership papers for the Peter Pan Woodland Club.
There is?
There was. I killed it.
How big was
Coroner
it?
said there were no signs of trauma on the babies or that they had been aborted. One had reached full term, while the other
Didn't kill me though. It scared me. It was walking around and I thought that it was like a hair.
and many people are taking it upon themselves to solve this mystery. Well, we did it. We opened up those.
One green and one, and
If you did enjoy that,
her
I've got good news.
crooked nose. Old Betty was not a pretty picture, but she was the best there was at fixing that ailed a man, and that was all that contained. Old
Why are you holding
Betsy
my knee?
house was full of herbs and roots and bottles filled with conjuring medicine. The walls were lined with strange books, brimming with magical spells. Old Betty was the only one living in the hollow
House?
Whoa. Who knew how to read. Her granny, who was also a conjuring, had taught her the skills as part of her medical training, just about the only friend Betty had.
Jaylee.
Leftovers. He'd even walk to town with her when she came to the local mercantile to sell her home remedies. Well, folks in town got so used to seeing Rawhead and Old Betty around. One day around hog driving time, when Old Betty came to the mercantile without him. "Where's Rawhead?" the owner asked, as he expected her basket full of home remedy potions. The liquid in the bottles swished in an agitated manner as Old Betty said, "I ain't seen him around today, and I'm mighty worried. You seen him here in town?" "Nobody's seen him around today. They would have told me if they did. The mercantile owner said we'll keep a lookout for ya. You. That's mighty kind of you. If you see him, tell him to come home straight away," Old Betty said. The mercantile owner nodded.
Wait, how long were you supposed to stay?
Agreement. Oh, I could stay for a while. Agreement as he handed over her weekly pay. Old Betty fused herself all the way home. It wasn't like Rawhead to disappear, especially not the day they went to town. The man at the mercantile always saved the best scraps for the mean old Razorback, and Rawhead never missed a visit. When the old conjuring woman got home, she mixed up a potion and poured it into a flat plate. "Where's that old hog got to?" she asked the liquid. It clouded over, and then a series of pictures formed. First, Old Betty saw the good for nothing hunter that lived on the next ridge, sneaking around the forest, rounding up Razorback hogs that didn't belong to him. One of them taking the hogs down to Hog Scald Hollow, where folks from the next town were saluting their Razorbacks. Then she saw her hog, Rawhead, slaughtered with the rest of the pigs and hung up, forgetting the final picture in the liquid was the pile of blood bones that had once been her hog, and he scraped clean head, lying with the other sheets in a pile. Old Betty was frustrated by the death of her only friend. It was murder to her, plain and simple. Everyone in 3 countries knew that Rawhead was her friend, and the lazy hog-stealing, good-for-nothing hunter on the ridge was going to pay for slaughtering him. Now, old Betty tried to practice white conjuring most of the time, but she knew the dark secrets too. She pulled out an old secret book her granny had given her and turned to the very last page. She lit several candles and put them around the plate containing the liquid picture of Rawhead and his bloody bones. Then she began to chant, Rawhead and bloody bones, Rawhead and bloody bones. The light from the windows disappeared, as if the sun had been snuffed out like a candle. Dark clouds billowed into the clearing where old Betty's cabin stood. The hollow of dark spirits could be heard in the wind that pummeled the treetops. Rawhead and bloody bones. Rawhead and bloody bones, Betty continued to chant until a bolt of silver lightning lifted the plate and streaked out through the window, heading in the direction of Hog Scald Hollow. When the silver light struck Rawhead's severed head, which was piled on the hunter's wagon with the other hog heads, was touching the body bones that had once inhabited its body. As the hunter's wagon rumbled away toward the ridge where he lived, the enchanted Rawhead called out, "Bloody bones, get up and dance." Immediately the bloody bones reassembled themselves into the skeleton of a Razorback hog, walking upright as Rawhead often done when he was alone with old Betty. The head hopped on top of his skeleton, and Rawhead went searching through the woods for weapons to use against the hunter. He borrowed the sharp teeth of a dying panther, the claws of a long dead bear, and the tail from a rotting raccoon, and put them over his skinned head and bloody bones. Then Rawhead up the track toward the ridge, looking for the hunter who had slaughtered him. Rawhead slipped past the thief on the road and slid into the barn where the hunter's and wagon Rawhead to come home. It was dusk when the hunter drove into the barn and unhitched his horse. The horse snorted in fear, sensing the presence of Rawhead in the loft, wondering what was disturbing his usually calm horse. The hunter looked around and saw a large pair of eyes staring down at him from the darkness in the loft. The hunter frowned, thinking it was one of the local kids fooling around in his barn. Lando Goshen, what have you got those big eyes for? He snapped, thinking the kids were trying to scare him with some crazy mask. To see your grave, Rawhead rumbled very softly. The hunter snorted irritably and put his horse into the stall. Very funny, ha, the hunter said. When he came out of the stall, he saw Rawhead crept forward a bit further. Now his luminous yellow eyes and his bare claws could clearly be seen. Lando Goshen, what have you got those big claws for? He snapped. You look ridiculous. To dig your grave, Rawhead intoned softly, his voice a deep rumble that raised the hairs on the back of the hunter's neck. He stirred uneasily, not sure how the crazy kids in his loft could have made such a scary sound. If it really was a crazy kid. Feeling a little spooked, he hurried to the door and let himself out of the barn. Rawhead slipped out of the loft and climbed down the side of the barn behind him, with nary a rustle to reveal his presence. Rawhead raced through the trees and up the path to a large moonlight rock. He hid in the shadow of the huge stone, so that the only thing showing were his gleaming yellow eyes, his bare claws, and his raccoon tail. When the hunter came level with the rock on the side of the path, he gave a startled yelp. Staring at Rawhead, he gasped, "You nearly knocked the heart right out of me, you crazy kid. Lando Goshen, what have you got that crazy tail for? To sweep your grave." Rawhead boomed his enchanting voice and whined through the woods, getting louder and louder with each echo. The hunter took to his heels and ran for his cabin. He raced past the old well house, past the wood pile, over the rotting fence, and into his yard. But Rawhead was faster. When the hunter reached his porch, Rawhead leaped from the shadows and loomed above him. The hunter stared in terror up to Rawhead's gleaming yellow eyes. In the ugly razorback hook sheathed his bloody bone skeleton, with its long bare claws, sweeping raccoon's tail, and his gleaming sharp panther teeth. "Lando Goshen, what have you got those big teeth for?" he gasped, distractedly stumbling backwards from the terrible figure before him. "To eat you up like you wanted to eat me," Rawhead roared, descending upon the good-for-nothing hunter. The murdering thief gave one long scream in the moonlight. Then there was silence and the sound of crunching. Nothing more was ever seen or heard of the lazy hunter who lived on the ridge. His horse also disappeared that night, but roaming through the forest in the company of his friend, Old Betty. And once a month, on the night of the full moon, Rawhead would ride that hunter's horse through town, wearing the old man's blue overalls over his bloody bones, with a hole cut out for his raccoon tail. In his bloody bear-clawed hands, he carried his raw razorback hog-shoe, lifting it high against the full moon for everyone to see. Darkness. She didn't know what to do. The lonely girl sat in the snowy fields just behind her house, as she did every night, hoping that she would somehow be granted the answer to her questions. Come back. See you next time.